Welcome, everyone. In this episode of Car Ride Conversations, we shift gears from strategy and performance to the heart of it all: the joy, the grit, and the unforgettable memories from years of travel ball. I sit down with my dad and former coach to relive some of our favorite moments from the Diamond, both hilarious and heartfelt. From switching hitting sides at age 11 to the national championships in 100-degree heat to the leadership lessons that shaped who I became, we explore the real magic of youth sports. This one's packed with laughter, strategy, and wisdom about what really matters in the long run. You'll leave with a full heart and a new perspective on how to show up for your athlete, not just as a coach or a parent, but as a guide for life. Welcome to Confident Common Clutch Car Ride Conversations. I'm your host, Valerie Alston, here to help parents and young athletes spark meaningful dialogue about mental toughness, resilience, and confidence. Whether you're headed to practice, a game, or just running errands around town, this podcast is your go-to for building stronger relationships and lifelong skills, one car ride at a time. Let's shift this conversation a little bit to some of your favorite moments from the journey. I would say more from the joy side of things, or some moments that stick out to you.
I think the most satisfying moments are when you see the hard work and the effort pay off. And I think probably one of the first ones that was good for us, because up until 11 years old, you were a right-handed hitter.
Yeah.
And okay, right-handed hitter, but no, not a lot of foot speed. So when we would mess around at batting practice, we would say, oh, hey, let's flip over and hit some left-handed.
Yeah, practice slapping or do random things.
But I noticed that you hit the ball pretty solid from the left side, right? And I said, oh, you know what? She doesn't have a lot of speed. She's If they see you up there, right-handed thrower, left-handed batter, they're
They
going to
think
assume
slapper.
you're a slapper.
Yeah.
So if you remember when we had Vivian at the top and
And then
she
I
was
was
a
number
left-handed
two.
slapper, and
Yeah.
Vivian would come up and pound the ball on the ground and be on first base, and then you'd come up and make the little fake slappy thing, and then they throw you a pitch and you'd rip a line drive right through somebody, and it was like, oh, that was fun. That was just
Yeah.
cool because what that showed me was when we think clearly and we make a good plan and we work on that plan and we execute it, it's cool to see it actually happen.
Yeah.
And I mean, that 11-year-old year was tough. And again, coaching rule here.
Yeah.
We said, okay, you're going to hit left-handed from now on in every game.
Yeah. For
You're
one whole
not going
year.
back to right-handed, so get over it. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're a punch and Judy hitter for this year, whatever, you got to get better, right? And there's some struggles with doing that, and
Yeah, I remember
a lot of
that.
people were saying, "Why are you doing that?" Right? And I think you and I had decided it was the right thing to do. It became where a lot of people criticized that. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? And it paid off substantially just by not backing off from that and realizing that if you're going to take it on and do it, you got to do it. You can't say, well, I'm going to switch back when I don't work,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And then obviously that national championship moment was fun. That was a tough battle. It was hot. We were in our third
Yeah.
game of the day. We had to beat those guys twice to win, and everybody was like super tired and like girls could barely pitch the ball. It was so
Yeah. It
tough.
was all hot and muggy. We were out in Tulsa,
100
Oklahoma, Broken
degrees
Arrow,
and
Oklahoma.
100% humidity.
Yeah.
And then I was moving people around just to try to keep everybody as fresh as possible. And I remember Jesse had just made an error. And so I moved her out to left field because Jesse would get mental if she made a
Yeah.
mistake.
Yeah.
So I moved her out to left field because she was hitting the ball like crazy. And then I brought Karina, who had never played third base, down to play third base. And the last play of the game, the girl hits her a little ground ball and she throws her out. And she asked me after the game, she says, "Why did you put me at third base? I never played third base." I said, "I knew you could do it.
What were
Why
you really
not?"
thinking at the inside? Was your brain
Yeah.
like,
What was I
oh, we'll
thinking,
try
right?
this?
Being able to fight through adversity, that's the cool stuff. When you see your kid fight, struggle, and then come out the other side victorious or at least very powerfully, you say, that's pretty cool. That was fun.
I want to tell a story. It's more of an off the field thing that, again, your humor was always fun. And there was a particular day you had come straight from work, so you were still in work clothes. And so you were just there talking. And I remember this was the era of the 90s people. So just keep that in perspective. You had a beeper on. And Roxy asked you, because at the time it was the 90s, and a beeper was like,
Oh,
"Oh, you have a beeper. Are you a drug dealer?" And completely straight faced, you were like, "Yeah." And in that moment, Roxy looks at me. She's like, "Your dad's a drug dealer?" I was like, "Yeah. You didn't know that?" And we just played it off for 10 minutes. "Wait a minute, your dad's a drug dealer?" I'm like, "Yes."
yeah, I sell drugs for a living.
And you kept going, "Yeah, I do it for a living." And like a couple of the girls know who'd been playing with us for a while. You are a pharmacist, right? So you actually legally are allowed to dispense drugs. But we had her going for 10 minutes. And finally, we just both were like, "Roxy, he's a pharmacist. My parents are pharmacists." Right? She's, "Oh." And to this day, I remember that moment. It was absolutely hilarious and fun. Just not necessarily a sport moment, but it was so great how he got to.
Another one, because what's cool is when you see somebody grow up and do something that you previously hadn't seen them do. Angie was our catcher, was quiet most of the time, but one of the best athletes. And when after we lost the Saturday night game against the Thunderbirds and had to come back and win 3 to beat them,
Yeah.
we were having that meeting before, and everybody's trying to get pumped up and get out there and play. And Angie, who never talked at meetings, stood up and said, "Let's go kick some bird butt." And everybody goes, "Whoa, Angie."
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
And so it was like, that was cool. That was cool. I like that. That was fun. And one time I remember when we were playing with Rizzo's team, and he was always barking for something, right? And I think you came up to the plate and pitcher threw a ball right over the plate, called strike. He's yelling at you, "Val, that's the one you're looking for. Come on, Val." And the next pitch was like a strike, and you took it. And he said, "Come on, Val, that's the one you're looking for." And the pitcher threw the next pitch, and you ripped it off the right field wall, pulled into third base for a triple, and said, "No, coach, that's the one I was looking for."
I did that.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I was just dying laughing because
that sounds like me.
yeah, it was good. It was fun. I guess it was fun because the ability to focus and play when it matters is so important. And for whatever reason, we're able to get that out of our teams by focusing on, I think, more the process and how to do everything well.
Yeah.
I remember because we always taught my teams the number one pitcher on the other team is a right-handed pitcher. She's going to live on the outside corner. Her out pitch is going to be a curve away, 95% of them. We would do nothing but drill for the whole pregame on taking the outside pitch knee high away and driving it into right field. And we were playing, I forget what team, but I remember the coach was this guy. He always had his analytics and he had his book out and his numbers and everything. And we rolled off 10 straight hits off this starting pitcher who had never been hit.
Yeah.
Here's this pitcher who's used to getting everybody out that just she's looking over at the coach
What's
like,
going on? What the
"You
heck?"
say, you throw it inside, do it, throw it outside, do that." He throws that book up in the air. Just God, I don't know, throw him a fatty, I don't care. But it was like it was fun to actually create a strategy, teach it, coach it, practice it, and then see it come out in the game and work. That's what made the game fun. You're doing different things and trying to actually be intentional about
Yeah.
how you play the game. That was fun. I remember our big lefty when she took the big swing of the bat and her knee like turned inside out
Oh,
and it was
yeah.
sideways.
Yeah.
All the girls ran away because of screaming. And
Yeah.
then you went to that and said, "Hey," it went up. That was cool. I thought you're not afraid to deal with the reality of it. And those are good moments. Those are the kinds of little things that not really about the game, but it was about the relationships of the games and stuff and seeing that if you play with the right intention, with the right values, you play hard, have fun, no mercy, man. Let's
Yeah.
go. And it lets you enjoy the moments between all the rest of it because the game should be fun. The practice should be hard.
Yeah.
And when you get to the game, it's just like letting it all come out and manifest and not getting so tense in those games is a big deal. And we never had the best talent of any teams, but we always played.
I would argue. We had some pretty talented
We
teams. I
had
mean,
talented people, but when we went up against our bigger Batbuster teams or the
yeah.
Cruisers and those teams that everybody thought were the best, they had a darn tough time beating us.
Yeah.
The other game that I think I really laugh about the most
Okay.
was the Alliance game against.
Oh, when you threw Dana three straight changeups in a row, and she turned around and yelled at you.
No, not that one. I'm thinking of the one at Nationals where we were playing Crunch and they were supposed to beat us, like
Yeah.
smoke us.
Yeah.
And we had watched all the previous games, and Christine was driving in 90% of their runs. But she was the slowest runner on the planet,
Yep.
and but she could hit. So every time she came up, we walked her
Yeah.
because she clogged up the base paths, so nobody could run past her. Rick and I are just cracking up because
Yeah.
we, hey, I don't care, on base. And then the only reason they won is because Shooky hit a dribbler down the third base that the umpire threw out of
Called for,
play. Yeah.
yeah.
So it was like,
Oh,
but it was
that's
fun to
right.
see
He
this
thought it was
group.
foul and he picked it up and threw it
Yeah.
out of play. And we were like, what are you doing?
Yeah. That game was a lot of fun. Even though we didn't win the game,
Yeah.
the fact that here's this band of misfits at that time that nobody expected to do anything that came up and took ninth place at nationals when they'd never even been to nationals before
Yeah.
was fun
That was
because
fun.
those kids played their lights out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That was a fun experience because we had just come from the Crunch team that all our teammates that I had been playing since I was 10 with, and just we made the decision to, okay, let's go find this new team closer to home. And that ended up being a really rewarding, even on my end, a rewarding experience because at that point, on that team, I was the only kid who had actually gone to a national tournament. And so it was a interesting, I think that was my very first experience of really understanding how setting the tone as a leader on the team really I was capable of doing that. Because previously I had literally grown up with all those other girls from not from 10 years old till 13. I ended up playing with the Crunch Girls again later in our Batbuster teams, but that I didn't know any of those girls from Alliance. That was the first time I was like a whole new team. And I walked in and they started deferring to me and I was like, whoa, that's weird. Like, what? I'm like, okay, I'm a leader. I naturally gravitated to that anyway. That was the first time where it was like, oh, I'm a leader. This
Well,
is,
I know that you before that time, I don't know, you always had confidence, but you weren't vocal about it.
yeah.
But that was interesting. In fact, the thing that visually that was weird because you were left-handed swinger, and for whatever reason, for 3 weeks in a row, you got in this weird thing where after you swung, you'd bring your bat back and stick it in the ground, which I'd never seen you do before.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the week, every girl on the team was doing that. And I'm going like, dude, they're really paying attention.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at them going, I wouldn't teach her to do that.
It did. I did do it on purpose. I'm sure it was
But
balanced.
what it tells you is people are saying, hey, I want to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, that was a really interesting experience for
There's
me
good
too.
athletes. They hadn't been properly engaged, and that was super fun to take that group out there. But I
Yeah.
probably my favorite experience team was probably the 16 Batbusters, where
Oh yeah, that was the best
we
team ever. I still have
we had this thing
all the
where
memories.
in wintertime the team was good but not playing well. It wasn't gelling. It was not gelling, and we had lots of talent, but we were doing rotation at that time, and the parents were mad about it because they wanted their sweetie to be the star and be on everything, but trying to get everybody play time to grow into their jobs. And so they were all whining and moaning. It was spilling over onto the field. So I finally just called timeout and said, we're not playing next weekend. We're going to this ropes
We went to
course.
that ropes course.
We're going to this ropes course and we're
Not good,
gonna,
bad, wrong. I still
yeah, we're
remember
gonna
that.
learn
Oh
to
God,
be
that was
together. And
camping, no less.
instantly we went there and it was 2 days overnight having to deal with all these challenges and stuff. And what
Yeah.
was really interesting about that is the
Three,
people
three people
that
quit. Yeah.
that quit, we were left with 9 players, right?
Yeah, we kept saying 9 is fine. That was our
Yeah.
motto for
But the 9 that were
stay.
stayed were like super tight now.
Yeah.
We added a few more players
Yeah.
and went out to nationals, and the very first inning
That was
of
yeah, that's the one there,
the
Chris.
very first game, Christine hits
Yeah.
a ball to right field, tries to beat it, trips over the base, breaks
Rolled
her
her ankle.
ankle.
Yep.
Sorry, number 4 hitter and a number one pitcher. She never
Yeah.
pitches an inning.
Yep.
And Crystal stepped up big time, and Carrie stepped up.
Yeah, we all just battled. That was
And we ended up, we lost 2
fifth.
games. We
Yeah.
lost by 1 run to the third place team and 1 run to the second place team.
Yeah.
But played amazing softball, and it was phenomenal to see. We didn't win the tournament, but I really enjoyed that experience because people were in it, they were loving it, they were working hard, they were doing everything they could. Everybody was together,
Yep.
and it was a great experience. And Crystal didn't stay with us, but she learned how to pitch. And she needed that confidence to be the ace, and she had good stuff. She was a really good. She had the pitches. She just
Yeah. Had the
didn't have
confidence
the.
at that point. And that experience, I would say, probably helped her quite a bit because she came out of that.
She got a full ride out of Louisville for that.
Yeah.
So not bad.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but the whole thing here is why are you playing this sport and why are you in it? And it's about the shared experience. It's about the putting in the work and seeing it pay off. It's getting over the frustrations and the bad days and coming through that on the other end and having your successes. And nobody's going to have 100% successes, but it's nice, I think, for the teammates to just understand that if you're giving your best effort and you get beat by a better team, then you tip your hat and say, that was a good game. You
Yeah.
guys played us. If you play crappy and you beat a team, you don't feel good because you didn't put any effort into it. Or if you play poorly against a weak team, you're like, what the heck are we doing? The only time I ever really got mad at you guys was when at pregame you were screwing around.
Yeah.
Because for me, that last hour and a half before the game, you got to get your locked and loaded. And I remember we were out at Nationals doing our pregame routine. Everybody was couldn't get their bunts down. We had a whole thing, a routine, the way we did it. And I called timeout and said, stop it. Whatever you're doing, just stop it. Start over. Because if you do this badly, you're going to do that badly. Be
Yeah.
confident, be cocky, whatever you want to be, but play the right way. And then people just got locked in and we played really well. So that's the coach has to set the tone and the attitude and enforce it.
Yeah.
And and that you have to trust your players to enforce it too. Because if the players don't buy in, 18 under bat buster year with Summer and Christine as our starting pitchers was super fun because
Yeah.
we had a situation where a player was slacking off at that tournament out in Colorado. And I'm talking about the outfielder.
Oh, Roach. God, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Kicked her off the we all just kicked her off the team. We're like,
Well,
you're
I
not
mean,
playing the rest of this tournament. I
I
don't
was
like I remember the
very,
girls we did
I was
something.
very proud of that actually because we set the tone for the team. And when she refused to play hard in the game, the
The
Chris and
team
Summer
got
came to
pissed.
me and said, "I'm not going to take the mound if that girl's on the field." And you're right because you got to buy into the concept, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if you're not going to put it all out there, then you don't get to
Yeah,
be
I
on it.
remember she a ball got by her, which was like, okay, you're human, you make a mistake, but then she walked. She didn't chase it. And all of us were pissed about that. We had a meeting about that. I remember that.
Yeah,
Girls got together and we're like,
but again,
Chris and Summer were like, we're not pitching. If she's on, we're like,
yeah.
coach.
But again, as a coach, the most important thing I think I could do is help you become a mature adult.
Yeah,
And the ladies that came with us on that,
sure,
they're
yeah.
super people and they're great people. And they play it the right way and they live the right way. And that's what it's all about is helping your daughter become a good adult. Because very few people make any money playing softball for a living.
All right, y'all. I hope you enjoyed that conversation between my dad and I. Before we dive into the conversation prompts, I want to kindly ask you that if you are enjoying this podcast, I would be ever so grateful if you could take a moment to leave a review when you're finished listening. Your feedback helps more parents and athletes discover the podcast and join our community of growing and connection. So, again, your support would really mean a lot to me. Now, let's dive into some conversation. So, always a quick reminder of the rules. There are no wrong answers when it comes to these questions. Take turns talking and listening, sharing your experiences. Minimize distractions as best you can. And remember that you can pause after each individual question, or you can just listen to all of the questions and then discuss whatever your heart deems worth it. All right, so let's dive into our first question. And this is for both parents and kids. Parents, if you had a former experience as an athlete, this is great too. So, the first question: what's a moment in your sport that made you feel proud? Not just because of the outcome, but because of the effort or the growth behind that moment. Question two: What do you think makes a good teammate? And how can you tell when a team is truly bought in, like the stories from this episode? Question three. Have you ever made a bold decision, like switching something big in your game or trying something new and stuck with it, even when it was hard? And question four. What's a funny or unexpected moment you had in your sport that you'll never forget? How did that moment bring your team closer? What was it? What caused this to be a memorable moment? Again, all four of these questions are both for parents and kids to share. Parents, if you didn't play athletics, if you weren't an athlete growing up, that's okay. Any hobby that you were a part of, any youth experience that you had is worth bringing into the conversation. Okay? We're just trying to share memories and ideas and enjoying some conversation, get to know each other. All right, y'all. I hope these prompts create great conversation for you. Let's make sure that you're making those car rides count. And I'll see you next time. Thanks again for joining me on Confident, Calm, and Clutch Car Ride Conversations. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with at least one other parent or perhaps a coach, youth sports coach in your life that would enjoy this conversation. As a listener, if you're looking for more weekly tips or mindset shifts and additional conversation prompts that help you and or your athletes stay confident, calm, and clutch, consider joining and subscribing to my newsletter at www.confidentcalmclutch.com/newsletter. And again, if you have any suggestions for new topics that you would like to see or hear about in these episodes, there is a link in the show notes where you can fill out a form and send me your ideas. You can also DM me at VAlston Coaching on Facebook or Instagram and share your topic ideas as well. I look forward to hearing from you and continuing these conversations as we go forward. Have a great day.